guys, welcome to the 2 a.m. pipe on a patio. It's the month of Meerschaum, and I'm smoking my little Meerschaum here tonight. In it, I'm smoking Lane 1Q. Now, I haven't smoked Lane 1Q in a long time, and I got a ton of this in my cellar. Because at one time, this was my favorite tobacco, and I've got just a ton of this stuff. And I still love it. I still really do like it. I just don't smoke aromatics that much, but Lane is such a good aromatic that I really enjoy it. I was just watching 13 Pipes, and he was walking in the woods, and it was raining, and it reminded me of a trip back in 2006. I had a gig up at a blues festival in Canada. We went up there and played, and on the way home, the band all drove straight home afterwards. They took the gear and everything, and they all drove straight home. And my wife and the kids and I, we decided we were going to stop and have a little family vacation. And so we stopped at Mount Baker in Washington, and we went to Crater Lake in Oregon, which was gorgeous. And then when we got into California, we decided we were going to go to the Redwoods and the Sequoias. And when we got to the Redwoods, it was just breathtaking. Redwoods were just breathtaking. And we were driving around and just looking at the redwoods, and we decided at one point it was starting to rain and drizzle a little bit, and we decided we'd pull off and we'd walk down into one of the groves of redwoods as it started to rain. So we got out of the car and we walked down into the grove of redwoods right off of the freeway. And you walk down into the grove of the redwoods, and you could hear nothing. You couldn't hear the cars. It was just silence. And the rain never made it through the canopy of the trees. Never made it to the ground. But the silence was just deafening. It was just, you walked into the grove of the redwoods, and it was just majestic in there. It was amazing. And the ground as you walked was like walking on pillows. It wasn't hard like ground. It was just soft. It was literally like walking on pillows underneath these trees. And it was just a forest of ferns. All underneath these trees was just this forest of ferns. It was the greenest, most beautiful, spectacular thing I have ever seen in my life. I have never seen anything to this day that made me as awestruck as this particular grove of redwoods, and I wish I could remember the name of the grove of redwoods, because I would love to go back there and see that grove again. And we've tried to find it, and we couldn't find it the last time we went up. But it was just spellbinding. And you were standing there, and these trees were just huge. I mean, they were just massive. If you've never seen a redwood, those of you who've never seen a redwood, these trees are just massive, and they are, if ones that had fallen over, if I stood next to the roots of a tree that fell over, I would be about a third standing next to it. It would be 3 times as tall as me, the bottom of the tree, the root part of it. They are just massive around and tall. Just, you can't, they just go forever. They're just the tallest trees in the world. But you stand there and you look up and you just see no sky, you know? It's just trees. And it's just magnificent in there, and just no sound. There's no sound penetrates into this area. And the green on the ground under these trees, because the sun never really gets down into the bottom of the ground. It doesn't dry up. It's always moist. So there's fern and moss everywhere, and it is just the greenest, most beautiful. God, they're just, I can't even describe it. I wish I had pictures of it to show you. It's just, it was the most amazing thing I've ever experienced in my life. And watching his video of the rain coming down and hitting the canopy of those trees, it just took me back to that place, and being in the redwoods, and the rain not being able to hit the ground because the trees were so dense in there, and you could walk in between the pathway in between the trees, and no rain would hit on you. It was an amazing experience. It truly was an amazing experience. And we stayed there for a long time, just walking around in there and just standing there in awe, just soaking it in. And then we got in the car and we drove to this place called Elk Grove, which was right off the freeway. We saw, as we were getting back on to the freeway, we saw a mother deer and 2 baby deer walking along. So we kind of pulled over and let the girls watch the baby deer and the mama deer. And we thought, how cool is that, you know? You got to see a deer and a mama deer and a baby deer. So we drove down the freeway a little bit to this place called Elk Grove. We saw some cars pulled off the side of the road there, so we thought, must be something over here to see. So we pulled in there, and there was this like this valley, and there were elk everywhere. I mean everywhere. Laying down there. All the male elk were back in the tree line, laying down, watching all the females and the babies. And the females and the babies were out in the front here. And there was like a barbed wire fence. And all of a sudden, female comes up, she jumps over the fence, babies jump over the fence. All of a sudden, all the elk start jumping over the fence right in front of our car. And pretty soon, the whole herd comes jumping over the fence right in front of us. And they're just crossing over the road right in front of us. And so we just sat there and watched this, and it was just amazing, just amazing. And then we drove down to see the sequoias. And I was really looking forward to seeing the sequoias, because they're supposed to be the biggest trees in the world. And they are the biggest around in the world. You can drive through, a sequoia, and we even drove through a redwood, and the sequoias are massive. The trunks of a sequoia are just, man, they are huge. Not as tall as a redwood, but big around. They are just tremendous girth on a sequoia. But they weren't, to me, as impressive as the redwood grove that we went into. That was just amazing, and I will never ever forget that as long as I live. That was to me, that was more impressive than the Grand Canyon. That redwood grove we walked into was more impressive than the Grand Canyon to me. And it just took my breath away. I had never seen anything as spectacular as that in nature. But of course, the kids, Elk Grove was the big deal for the kids. Watching the elks was the big deal for them. And the trees were no big deal for them. I mean, it was cool to stand next to a tree and walk through a tree and drive through a tree, and all that was neat. But seeing the elks, that was the really cool thing. And then getting to but standing in that grove of redwoods, that one redwood grove. God, I wish I could remember it. I wish we had taken pictures of the sign and marked on the map where it was. That was just, I would have loved to have camped in that grove. I'm sure you can't, but I would have loved to have just set up a camp, pitched a tent right there in the middle of that grove, and just camped there for a week. Boy, that was beautiful. Just quiet. I mean, just not a noise. It was right off the freeway, and you couldn't hear. I mean, it wasn't a freeway, but it was the coastal highway. You couldn't hear cars going by. It was just silence. It was just, I'll never forget that as long as I live. Anyway, that's my redwood story. I'll talk to you guys later. I love you guys. God bless. Have a good day.